This goes for mostly every other major NBA award this season, but the 2026 Most Improved Player Award race will be the most impossible in league history. Welcome in, my name is Dean, and I tend to talk about the NBA on this channel. If that's something that seems to pique your interest, please consider pressing that subscribe button and joining this movement that we're getting together. I want to get to 100 subscribers pretty soon, and we're probably going to hit that mark within the next minute. So if you want to join in on that group that you can say that you were there before 100. Please consider pressing that button and turning on post notifications so you don't miss out on future NBA updates. So I have a short list of guys that was whittled down pretty heavily for my consideration for the Most Improved Player Award. This list could seriously be 20 deep. The amount of talent that we have in the NBA right now, it's just completely, it doesn't make any sense. So this list was carefully constructed. I had to kind of throw some guys out of the conversation that definitely do deserve to be here. But one thing I'll say from the beginning before we get into any of these names is that I hope the NBA doesn't follow along with the same, oh, we're going to give Ja Morant the Most Improved Player Award in 2022 because he went from averaging 22 points a game to 26 or 27 points a game. I hate the idea of giving superstars or stars that we knew were going to be good upon their entrance in the NBA, giving those guys the Most Improved Player Award when we knew that they were likely going to progress to a star level. We knew that Ja Morant, being drafted number 2 overall in the draft, that he was going to progress to be a star. He was going to have a big jump from year 2 to 3 or year 3 to 4. What we did not know is that, and I guess I'll start it out like this, a guy like AJ Mitchell on the Oklahoma City Thunder would go from averaging 6 points a game to over 17 and looking like one of the more controlled players in the backcourt for the Oklahoma City Thunder, for a team that might break the 70 win threshold this year. I don't want to see, and this is something else I'll get into, I don't want to see Austin Reeves win this award. It's a guy that I do have on this list, but I figured I should say it right now. Don't want Austin Reeves. I'm actively praying on his downfall that he doesn't come away with this award because he's one of those guys that's like the Ja Morant tier of players where he was a fringe all-star. He easily could have been an all-star last year, but him going from 25-5 last year to about 28 and 9 assists or whatever, of course, it's a massive uptick in production. But we knew that Austin Reeves was going to likely come into this year better than he was last year when he could have been an all-star. And I hate giving these guys the award that are already established that just get to a higher level. We need to be giving it to guys who legitimately came out of nowhere to become great role players or legitimate, kind of lower tiered stars, like how AJ Mitchell has done for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It really is amazing to me how composed AJ Mitchell is and how professional he is. He looks like, he gives me the kind of feelings that Brandon Pajemski, this is on a much different level, that Brandon Pajemski, for me as a Warriors fan, the feeling that he gave me when he started playing well in his rookie year and into his second year, because he came in as a guy that looked super mature, like he'd been there before, like he'd been a decades-long veteran in the NBA, just the way that he controlled the offense. And even with guys like Chris Paul and Steph Curry on his team, he just had that natural IQ, and he looked like he'd been there before. AJ Mitchell is that times a million, but I think it's more with his aggression in terms of scoring the ball and just his polish as a ball handler and as a playmaker. AJ Mitchell legitimately came out of nowhere to make the rich richer and to give the Thunder even more of a spark off their bench, like they needed it. AJ Mitchell could really be, in the grand scheme of things, if he keeps up this kind of productivity, he could be one of the main reasons why the Thunder do break that 70 win threshold and why he comes away with Most Improved Player and why he could lead the Thunder decidedly to a back-to-back NBA title. Next up on the list is a guy named Ryan Rollins, who I mentioned the Warriors before, a former Warriors prospect who didn't really pan out along with Patrick Baldwin Jr., gets shipped away, lands on the Milwaukee Bucks, and Ryan Rollins has bursted out on the scene to become a legitimate star for the Bucks as their starting point guard. Alongside Giannis, alongside Miles Turner, who's making his debut season for the Milwaukee Bucks, Ryan Rollins has completely exceeded everyone's expectations, but that's putting it lightly. The way that I talked about AJ Mitchell being able to score the ball with an aggressive mindset and his polished ball handle, that's Ryan Rollins times another 10, because his handle is really spectacular and he uses his very strong, it looks kind of slender, but he has a very underrated strong frame mixed with his great handle. He's able to get to the rim whenever he wants to, especially off pick and roll concepts with either Giannis or Miles Turner. He's able to step back effectively for threes, and he's an over 40% three-point shooter. Last year, before he kind of made this big jump, he was over 40%, and people were saying that maybe he would have some more on-ball potential, but he was mostly a catch-and-shoot threat in the corners. But now Ryan Rollins has seemed to put it all together. He is a natural, amazing playmaker with great feel. He knows when exactly he can leave his feet when he's driving to the basket and still have enough time to either dish off a pass to Giannis or throw it behind his head out to Miles Turner for a three. He is an excellent decision maker, pretty low turnover guy, just an all around fantastic, again, veteran like point guard for a team that could very well be contending in the Eastern Conference. A name that you have to mention, even though I believe he's still a Austin Reeves kind of guy, like if he were to win the award, or a Ja Morant kind of guy, is Deni Avdija. He has to be mentioned in these kinds of conversations because what he's doing is flat out spectacular, even though he's going from a guy that was averaging about 20 points last year to maybe 26, 27 this year, and a higher number of assists, rebounds, and a great percentage from both the field and the 3-point line. When we talk about his control and his ability to shoot both off the catch and off the dribble and get all the way to the rim, and he's got a great in-between game, these are the things that are even more accentuated because of his size, which just makes him so, I don't want to say so much more of a valuable commodity than these guys. But right now in the NBA, what you need more than anything, it seems, to be a competitive NBA team is to have guys that can space the floor, but also kind of use their mix of height and strength and agility to their advantage to get to the basket. And he's just got a fantastic frame. He gets to his spots, and he's a kind of guy like you could tell that he takes off after Luca in certain ways, where his deceleration and his handle for his size is just completely out of this realm. And he's just becoming more and more of a polished scorer and 3-point shooter specifically, seemingly every game. So Deni is really bursting into, while, it's hard to look at a guy like Deni Avdija and see the numbers and kind of having a hard time putting two and two together, that these are like superstar level categories that the guy's reaching. This is the reality of it. That Deni Avdija is becoming a superstar right before our eyes. But again, like I will say, this award is not for stars becoming superstars. So effectively, I'm going to be taking him out of this list, and we're going to be reserving it for the guys like AJ Mitchell, Ryan Rollins, and a guy like Jaime Jaquez Jr., who, as the Heat's more consistent sixth man option, he is getting all he can eat, and the offense around him is just fantastic with the addition of Norman Powell and Bam Adebayo really coming out of his shell. Even though Tyler Hero's hurt, Jaime Jaquez has really had a major impact on the Heat, immediately becoming one of the better offensive teams in the NBA. That was very unexpected, but that's just the effect that he's had off the bench. Jaime is up to 17 points a game on 54% shooting from the field, which is amazing for his size and just his avenues of scoring, and the ability at which he spins into the lane and finishes with hard contact at the basket and kind of shrugs it off. Jaime Jaquez, for his size, that efficiency is awesome, though he hasn't shot a lick for 3-point range. You can't throw a rock in the ocean from there at about 17%. It does not seem to matter because that 2-point efficiency and his ability to get to the free throw line is really all he needs. One thing I'm probably the most impressed about with Jaime Jaquez is his ability to stay patient, but also know when it's his time to really go and throw that spin move on a defender and push the pace and get all the way to the rim. And I feel like that advanced pace, that heightened pace, elevated pace, if you will, it's probably one of the main reasons why the Heat are so dominant on the offensive end. Just this subscription to the idea of, we need to really get out and transition. We need to make looks easier for guys like Norman Powell, even if they're transition 3-point looks. Easier for guys like Norman Powell, for Andrew Wiggins, for Davion Mitchell, who could also be thrown in this conversation as well. But Jaime Jaquez has been the guy that has really taken advantage of that change in game plan the most, and it's why he's really thrown into the center of these conversations. Also, can't have this conversation at all without mentioning Josh Giddey of the Chicago Bulls. He's a guy that, for whatever reason, my mind just doesn't immediately go to as, oh, he's the front runner, even though plenty of sports books out there and things like that have him as kind of the number one guy. But Josh Giddey getting up to 21, basically 10-10, and leading the Bulls to that incredible, what was it, a 5 or 6-0 start, though the hype has kind of died down and the stats have come down to earth a little bit. Still, the efficiency for a guy like this, who we didn't really think could be as effective of a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, either, or off the dribble as well. We didn't think he could be that effective at all in terms of getting his own shot and getting into a jump shot. Specifically, he's one of those guys where he's able to get to the rim with seemingly, people will say, with no bag or whatever. He's able to get to his spots fairly easy. He's another one of those guys that takes advantage of the kind of deceleration steps and really cheeky spin moves that kind of gets him into the right crevices in certain times that, you know, it makes it really effective for him to get there. And then the playmaking off of those drives is what completely puts him into a separate tier when it comes to these guys. Because in terms of the playmaking, again, we mentioned a guy like Austin Reeves before, but Josh Giddey is just on another level when it comes to the playmaking off of his ability to drive to the rim, off of his ability to work off the dribble and try to get up a good 3-point look. He's just been a fantastic option and rising star for the Chicago Bulls, and he is squarely in the center, maybe the front runner in these conversations as well. The last name I'll mention on this list is a guy that he could probably be within the top 2 or 3 in this award race, depending on who you ask, but I feel like he might become the front runner for this award later in the season, maybe towards the midway mark or towards the, you know, 3-quarter mark of the NBA season, and that's Jalen Duren for the surging Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are 10-2, and if they're going to have, you know, kind of MVP candidacy level eruptions from Cade Cunningham, and if the Detroit Pistons end up becoming a 60-win team out of nowhere, they're going to need guys to kind of fill in these spots and contend for these kinds of awards, because this is how the NBA works. They need guys to come away with the most improved players. So then that way, when the Pistons are really in the middle of a great playoff series against another top tier opponent in the Eastern Conference, they can hype up this battle by saying they have top MVP finalist, potentially Cade Cunningham, most improved player winner Jalen Duren, and that'll just hype up kind of the overall feel or you know, the greatness of this team. But aside from that, aside from potentially being put in that position because the team is so successful, Jalen Duren has completely broke out to be the clear-cut second best player on this Detroit Pistons team, averaging at the time of this recording 19 points, 11 boards. What I'm most impressed by is that he's been really adding to his bag. He's adding hezzy pull-ups and he's making more decisions on the short roll from Cade Cunningham, and he's adding more of a ball handling aspect to his game. And these are things that you would have been completely shocked to see throughout the kind of early stages or middle stages last year. But on top of the ball handling and adding even more of kind of a jump shot in the low post around to his game and post hooks and all these kinds of things, the rebounding really stands out. The defense really stands out, but also what really comes into play here is his efficiency. He went from a guy that was taking maybe 6 or 7 shots in a given game to now he's averaging about 11 attempts from the field, but his incredible efficiency has followed along with the increased attempts from the field. This is a guy that's going to probably by season's end still be shooting between 67 and 70% from the field, averaging 17 to 20 points a game, along with 11 or 12 rebounds, a couple of blocks. And if this progression or production continues, he's going to be the front runner for this award. And especially if the Pistons do get to that level where I've seen people saying, oh, what if the Detroit Pistons have like a Cleveland Cavaliers type season from last year where they win 64 games and kind of just come out of nowhere as the top titan in the Eastern Conference? If the Pistons end up doing that, Jalen Duren's going to be squarely in the hunt for this award. Like I said before, there are plenty of other guys that will have a chance to win this award, like the Keontae Georges of the world, and I can't even begin to imagine all the other names that are going to pop up on this list as the season progresses. But for right now, these are my guys that are really going to contend for this award. I'll say again, AJ Mitchell, Ryan Rollins, Jaime Jaquez, and Jalen Duren. Those are my guys that are going to be the top contenders for this award this season. But anyways, that'll be it for me. Thank you very much for tuning into today's video. And if you like this, please consider subscribing. If you love the NBA more than your friends, your family, your adored childhood pets, please consider pressing that subscribe button, because that's what we're about on this channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one.